Her name is Barbara Heil Sonneck, and she is really a wonderful human who has a successful 20-year career in real estate industry, built on her diverse and rich experience working with international Fortune 500 and small companies. And she's also a serial entrepreneur, so she knows a lot about business leadership. She's a renowned author, a real estate investor, a wealth building strategist, and she is deeply versed in empowerment and also the immigrant experience. Her work, rooted in her own journey, offers actionable insight for achieving financial independence and navigating the challenge of a new beginning. Barbara's expertise illuminates paths to prosperity and personal empowerment, making her a guiding light for individuals who are seeking growth and success. She believes in a 10x mindset and the power of one more, and that aligning with the right partners, assembling the right teams, and honoring core values are key. She is a trailblazer in many ways, and she is not afraid to be uncomfortable and believes that discomfort brings growth. She has held leadership positions in several industry associations and is currently serving on the committee for the nonprofit SAPREA, which is fighting human trafficking. She loves to mastermind, shares her learning and best practices as a business owner, and her viewpoints on leadership with authenticity, the power of energy alignment, business growth strategies, and team delegation make her a valuable resource for media and those hosting events, podcasts, and expert panels like this experience itself. Welcome to the stage, Barbara Heil Sonneck. Hello, Barbara.
Hi, hello, Dr. Helmut. It is exciting to be here, and this whole intro has to be shortened.
Yeah, I'm so sorry because I should have shortened it, and
No.
I will
I
do better.
provided it, but I agree. And I said nobody wants to hear all of that. So.
But it is true, and what I think is so beautiful about you, Barbara, is that you are a woman of great intellect, and also great passion, and so you provide both in balance, and you're very active in areas that are for protection of people, both in their money and in their body and in their mindset. And I appreciated this very much when I first met you. I think partially, you see, I'm going to be a little bit of a nationalist with another German who has so many things that they have nurtured in themselves. And you see this later in our life experience, right? As we're past our 4-0, you see that in people when they've curated something really special in themselves. And you're very good about sharing that with the world. So I'm very thankful to have you here.
And very excited to be here and being interviewed. It went, kind of like, I'm very excited about this opportunity and share some wisdom.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, so the first piece I will ask you is around this love in leadership, right? So you've had so many various business experiences, and sometimes, you think about areas like real estate. Sometimes these aren't very hard areas. They can be very tough areas. And some of the work that you've done globally, you've seen so many characters in terms of personalities, and I'm sure plenty of unloving people, plenty of people who display sort of the worst of humanity. And how is it that you would recommend leading a business with love in a way that is effective?
Well, I strongly believe that when we're putting out positive energy, that this energy starts to travel. And there's always two ways how we can do things, right? We can either get into, I call it the stress bubble, and explode all of this negative energy out to the universe. And I strongly believe when you do that, your results will be diminished to the extent of how there is still enough positive energy to reach the other side. I know that sounds maybe really more philosophically, but I think that is how I look at things. I remember back in the days when I started my career that I had the nickname Mrs. Sunshine. So what that means is that I really believe I have little smileys on my mirror because I believe when you have a smile on your face, it is so much harder to put hard words into your mouth and let them out. So that might be a little trick which might help the one or the other person. And I feel, and that's what I'm so engaged also about the subject of love, right? You have to be engaged in what you're doing and enjoy it. And I always have shared that with my leadership team. If you truly believe that this is not the place for you where you can grow and provide value, that might be a point in time to think about new opportunities. And in addition, and it might sound hard, I remember I had a very loving and caring and really dedicated young lady on my team. She actually started with me as an intern and really worked her way up. But at a certain point, I see she was also hitting the ceiling, and I also felt that at that position in the company, and she didn't want to grow more into sales and into the sales side. Our company hadn't had another development place for her. So I felt strongly that I had to let her go. And it was really, really hard, but I gave her all the time she needed. But I made it very clear that I strongly believe that it was time to grow into something next. And sometimes in the situations, and I have been on that side as well, you might look back in 1 or 2 years to find out that that was really the right decision to do, because I strongly believe growth has to always be part of a leadership journey.
Yeah,
So I think that is
sure.
really my key answer to that question, right? And when you do it with a smile, and you're setting and you're choosing your words wisely, then things get better. I also believe I don't have to be the initiator of the idea. I like to put out seeds and see who might pick it up to take it at theirs. Because I also strongly believe when people pick up and truly think that this is their idea and they're running with it, the implementation time frame is so much shorter. And it's it's again, it is leadership with love, which fits the overall subject, and thinking what is also best. On the other hand, on another example, for a long period of time coming out of the technology environment with more male than female in leadership position, for a long time I felt I had to be tough, right? I kind of like, I also wear never dresses, right? I had the typical blue suit corporate environment, and sometimes had a really hard time because I am a very emotional person. And until was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, so it took quite a while, but I also believe the world changed, is that I am now at a point that I can sit across somebody on the team in a tough conversation and can have to let that person go and even cry or put 1 or 2 tears running down because I might admire and like that person as a person, but not but this person might not be the right fit for the company and for the team to move and propel that team forward. And if I do not make this decision, I'm actually I'm actually not promoting and supporting the rest of the team who might give the best. And this little shifts of how we're looking at things often, help dramatically, because often in leadership, you're your worst enemy to get out of your head and stand next to it and see what's really the right thing to do. And often there's a point where we avoid conflict, and I don't want to avoid conflict, but I still do it with love.
Yeah. I relate to, for certain, this concept of the conflict, right? So I will share a story and then I have another question for you. I found that my job working, whether it was the last couple gigs at IBM, at Allscripts, were these turnarounds, right? Terribly difficult turnarounds, even a recent job that I did with a dental healthcare. And it's like the conflict in the room, the big elephant people are avoiding, but it's the most important thing, right? The conflict, to embrace conflict and to dare to go into it, and then to be very honest, right? There's almost no emotional attachment. People don't realize it's the most loving thing you can do for a business. It's to go where it's painful because it's the only way we're going to move this organization or this business forward. It's kind of like the conversation with Janet, right, around the money and not wanting to see the money problem. Um, yeah, so and then with a smile too, because at the end of the day, it may feel like pain now, but what I'm dealing you is actually going to help tremendously. I'm so intrigued, Barbara. We haven't talked about it, but you talk about sort of like the immigrant story and a little bit of turnaround in your life. Maybe can you tell us about an inflection point in your life journey and what you learned from it that helped you in your business leadership?
Absolutely. I believe the journey over the last 2 years, being a co-author in 4 different book launches and really working on my story from different angles, has allowed me to heal in a way I never thought it really would impact me. And it was, it took me quite a while. So the first time was the hardest, just to deal with elements of emotion. And just in a nutshell, everybody comes from somewhere. So my family, from my mom's side and her mom's side, they are from the former Czechoslovakia, and it was the end of Second World War, and they had, their house and horses and places and a nice life, but there was war, and the war was lost. And at that point in time, the Russians were coming, so they had to leave everything behind and run for their lives. And then these 5 women, all the men died in war. Also, my mom, my mom's mom was raped. So it's a whole kind of like, element and stories behind, but it also defines how my mother were raised and certain values and certain things she was really, really strong about. And what I believe has happened, they lived in this little room, and after a couple of years, they saved enough money that they could buy a little farm. When my mom was 16, she pretty much left to the big city and then started working in a bakery. And she did not only, work in the bakery, she also raised the children, and then she also was cooking. So when my mom finally, and when I was younger, when I was a child, I was often there. And I know, and I remember, so kind of like, so I was a little bit exposed to this environment. But when she finally decided that she will stop working, they had to hire 3 people to replace her. And the interesting part is, if you're thinking and taking that bridge, also being a business owner. If you're a business owner and you're starting to get yourself out of the roles you're placing, I think it's safe to say that you will have to replace yourself with 3 other people to get similar results, which often can be a showstopper. And because growth is not happening, in an upwards line. It goes up and then it plateaus, then it might go down before it goes up again. And also understanding that. So linking back to prior speaker Janet, it's like, so that's why it's so important to know your numbers and connect with it. But going back to your question, writing down my story and understanding also elements of where I was hurt, and that allowing that to share with the world and showing elements of being, and I have a hard time with that word, being vulnerable. That is, I think that was the biggest learning, really allowing that the emotion are coming out. And I feel that was a major transformation for me, so that I had and I could lift this shield, that I
Mhm.
can be strong, that I can be successful, but I can be me, 100% me, with the emotions in me and the acceptance that way as well. So I think that was a major shift. And I believe that that was also a major, that was a major element to turn the corner into a whole different direction. Because for a couple of years, I was soul searching of what's my next. And still to this day, I say I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, because there might be more opportunities. And I'm definitely up for it. I am one of these people who are intrigued after a couple of years and having accomplished something. I need a new challenge. My brain needs to have a different element who is pushing me to that next level. I also will never retire. What I mean with that is I want to have the choice of when and what I do and where I say yes or no to. But retirement is not a vision for me. There's still so much more I want to do and support and drive. And yeah, so lots of things to happen still.
Yeah, I was sitting here and I'm thinking, first of all, this is inspirational for those of you who are listening, because there's an aspect to me. First of all, I'll say there's also a mirror. I love that you are so full of the passion of life and this process of exchanging with the world, right? Both, I would call it loving the world, right? As you're building business, as you're making change, as you're realizing within self, you then mirror it back into the world, right? And you come to the next place of growth inside. I don't ever want to retire either, because I never want to stop growing. I don't want to ever stop growing, because I would rather grow to the end, right, than to stop. And obviously my body tells me I have to stop, that maybe part of me has to stop in a way, but maybe not entirely. Um, yeah, also I just want to respect for a moment that if any of you're wondering any of the work that we talked about, I saw Renata chiming in as well. The work of self-work, right? So we talked earlier, Barbara, I don't know if you were here, we had the discussion of writing a book and how it opens you up as a person, or the mindfulness that Renata spoke about. As we hear you and you kind of say, hey, I made peace with this part of my mom's story, right? It gives you fuel to then change and shift maybe what you're doing in the world, right? And it broadens your leadership, and that makes an impact. It has an impact on the work you're doing. And so I just want to honor that, first of all, but also acknowledge for those who are listening that this is the result, is you get inspiration to do something new. It's funny, not funny like haha, but I have a similar story in my grandparents with fleeing from Russians and rape and all the things that happen in our stories that we then get to honor with our lived experience, right? That we get to honor with the way that we are walking in the world in light of those stories. I'm curious about the coming to America component. And what is it that you think that people can understand about that transition, and how maybe it can inform our leadership as we think of managing people in America often that have the same story?
So there are cultural differences. I think that's the first part. And since we are on the outside still very similar in the way we function and work, it is not as easy to grasp, but it was definitely an adjustment for me, and it took me a couple of years just to embed myself into the different cultural elements of how you build relationship and also friendships. it was a little bit harder because originally I worked with a lot of international teams and was traveling a lot. So I was living here, but I was not really embedded in the day-to-day life when I was still in corporate world. So that made it harder. And you meet people, people are very friendly, and you're invited, and it's like loose, and yes, we'll get together. But that does not always mean a true invitation, right? And understanding the nuances between
Mhm.
one and the other took me a while because it also kind of like, disappointed me in the beginning because cultural, it's more like when you say something, I do it, but not under the aspect of business in that personal environment and understanding the differences between the North and the South. It's similar in Germany as well, but really understanding cultural differences. So when you're working international, in general, often you have cultural education. It's part of the HR and the corporate structure to really at least understand and get some of the basics. So that took me a while. But then I saw the fantastic opportunities in what somebody, as an immigrant, what you can do here, what I never could have done as easy, like setting up an organization, setting up a business, is not as easy where I'm coming from. So I saw this a tremendous opportunity. And if we're going back, we are a country of immigrants. We are a country here where people were attracted to this opportunity. And I think we have lost a little bit of that. We're kind of like, because there's a lot of grabbing of, big corporations, buying all of the small ones. But I believe that we're actually on a backwards trend, that we're seeing, that relationship building and customer satisfaction and service is playing another and a big role to the success of smaller companies now growing quicker. Because that has been lost, and it's also something I think we're soul searching for, right? To get back to this service level, to go in a restaurant and not just being happy that somebody is there and puts a plate in front of you. of
No,
you.
it's true. No, it's 150% true because what I say often is we've lost the humanity in business,
Yeah.
right? We've lost. So this love game, right, is also about if you think about business, it ultimately is an act of love between you and I, right?
Yeah.
So it gets very personal and it gets very much something that if you don't experience a great, a great experience with a business, you don't feel it. And if you're not engaged, then you don't want to be there. And I think
Mhm.
there are some companies, I feel like I'm writing about this in my book, but I feel like there are going to be the companies that choose to be loving and are committed to love. And there will be the companies that aren't. And
Mhm.
we will experience those things in them. And their leaders will be different. Their employees will act different. Our engagements with them will act different. And we will choose them because we feel loved with them. But they will also be loving to their employees and to their,
Absolutely.
right?
And and just to add this additional layer is that community impact layer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
not just in growing and expanding for growth by itself, but what is it you do which will impact, your environment, not only the people working for you, which is not a key priority there, but also the give back element, right? What are you as leaders showing? What is that impact? How can we utilize technology to drive and give back to in certain elements? So I see a lot of fantastic opportunities there. And just because I know we only have a couple of minutes left, so just love to share my word of the year, which is freedom. And what I mean with that is, for me, it's like the freedom formula. And that is clarity plus focus equals unlimited opportunities. And with that little tagline, and I was inspired, with the word love by you, and put love in everything you do. right? But that's the part is because if we are clear on where we want to do and clearly say where we can say yes and no to, and are focused with our time and determine exactly what to do every day consistently to move forward, there's no stopping you. And I know Janet, was picking up on the last presentation mentioned, really like this business and being in the weeds. One of my key messages and conversation with every business owner is get yourself out of the weeds as quickly as you can and replace all of the tasks you can delegate as quickly as you can. And the only element is I have jumped, I saw opportunity. I did my little sales, one more sales. And this is, I made the decision before I had the sales, but I knew I could get to that next point. So sometimes as a business owner, you make a decision before the money is telling you you can, because otherwise there's no time left for thinking. And as soon as I'm getting myself out of the day-to-day operation, I can think strategically. And with strategic thinking, there comes so much more opportunity. But of course, it's not a today to tomorrow process. This is years and years of hard work to get to a certain point and optimize the strategies around this formula. And the other key message I would love to share with the audience is think about passive income as soon as you have the opportunity also to save. It's good to save, but we know money in a savings account pretty much loses day to day. So just educate yourself about alternative investments. If that is merchant acquisition, and I don't care what it is, but just be informed that there is more than what we hear every day and what everybody does. Just to be prepared and put a strategy in place which allows you to have passive income, allowing you to replace your income with this passive income so you have the freedom to do what you want to do.
Right. To go out there and make more change.
Exactly.
And I will say, it's so funny, not funny, haha, but this is all part of this financial literacy challenge, right? Because there's both the illiterate, right? Completely illiterate. And then there's also on the other side, we're told these are the ways to grow your money, when indeed there are many options, as you're alluding to, Barbara, in which one can grow the money that they have. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the gift that you're sharing with people, so that Dubs
Absolutely,
can
I
drop
would
that
love
in.
to. And it's just a 15-minute coffee chat with me. So if you're interested just to share thoughts and ask me questions and get my perspective and my thought concept, that's pretty much my gift.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you
And
so
I will
much.
tell you, as someone who took you up on a coffee chat, it was wonderful, and we have had several opportunities to collaborate, and I look forward to more in the future.
Me too.